dummy activity. Dummy activity is required if two activities share some, but not all, of the immediate predecessors. Okay, so let's have a look at a scenario where we need a dummy activity. This is a precedence table, and we're going to draw the network and see how that one will work. Again, always it's a good idea to make use of a pencil, and just to see if you need to do, adjustment here and there. All right, now, so starting with activity A and B, again, that is the secret. So just make sure start with the activity that doesn't have immediate predecessors. So now we labeled A and B. Let's move on, put a note there. Okay, and what comes after A is C. So we'll put C there. And we're done with that. So after B is D. So we do that activity. All right. So the next activity is E. Activity E is C, has got C and D. So C and D are basically up there. So now C and D. So that's activity E. So now, if you look at this project here, then after that you have got F. So now F comes after, what's the name? F comes after C. So, all right, now E, D, they're disjoint. So that's what we need a dummy. So let's actually do the next one first before we worry about the dummy now. Let's see why we need a dummy. Okay, now we have joined with C, but we haven't joined with D. And let's finish it off and we see F comes right after E. So F is C, sorry. So this one was supposed to be, yeah, C, yep, C. How about if I actually put a D there? This one off. And I put F here, F there. I put activity F and I put activity E. And activity E, but again, just to remember that activity E is only joined D, it hasn't been joined C, so now you know why we need a dummy. So we need to use a dummy, and one thing you need to remember is a dummy doesn't have a weight. In other words, doesn't have a number. So we just put dummy there, just to say that there is a connection between C, that those are immediate predecessors, C and D are immediate predecessors for E. Okay. All right. Now, activity G is there. So G has to be somewhere there. So G is the end. Activity G. So that's the finish line. So that means I have to do some adjustment again. So I'm going to do it this way here. And I also do that. So now there, that's activity E, that's activity F, and I'll wrap it off just to make it nice and clean. Wrap that one off, wrap this one off, and that's where your dummy is, just to make sure that we fulfill all the requirement of the table, what the table is asking us to do. All right, let's move on to the next example. The second example is going to be a little bit longer. Let's see. So we're starting with activity A. So that means that is our start. And A is immediate predecessor for B and C. So if I put B there and C the other side, and I put a note there, not another note there. Okay, we've done this and that. Okay, now we're gonna move on to activity. What's that? D. D is there. D, beauty. So up to here is well and fine. Okay, now we have. Okay, now we have E. Activity E is right after C, so we put E there. Beauty. Up to now, the project looks nice and clean. Okay, now what do we have next? So we have, this is where it gets, where the mess starts from. So you have activity F. The immediate predecessor is C and D. So this is where we need to put a dummy. So now also remember that E and F are immediate predecessors for H. So that means H has to be somewhere there, even though we haven't labeled. So that means there should be a way of connecting. So that means I probably have to do this way. What is that? So F there. If I put F there, and I need to use a dummy now, because I have to connect that. That's when we need a dummy. Because remember that activity, what's name? Activity F, the immediate predecessors are D and C. Then how do you join that? So you need a dummy there. So just to say that it's basically going this way, coming that, and also going this way, coming that. So that just to fulfill what is required of us. All right, now activity, what was that? Activity, that was activity H, was it? Yes, H. Because the immediate predecessor for H is F and E. Remember that you could come this way and you can come that way, and that actually tells us H is, the immediate predecessor for H is F and E. All right, now we have G. So activity G is immediate predecessor. So G happens to be, activity G happens to be D and C. All right, now, so this is the junction where D and C actually meet. So that's where we put activity G. So that's G and, sorry, D and C, I should say. So C this way through the dummy, you can connect with G, and that is a solid line. So remember that dummy doesn't have a weight. And if you were to do, a critical path of dummy. Okay, now activity I happens right after G, so which is somewhere there. That is I. Then we have got activity J, which is after H, which is somewhere there. J has got two immediate predecessors, H and G. So this is now we need to use a dummy because we can't actually, join that way. So just to say that they are somehow joined, and we're going to be using a dummy. And the dummy has to be facing this way here. And the arrow has to be facing that. Just to say that, G is joined J and H. Those are the immediate predecessors for H. So that's when we need a dummy. And remember that we label us to be D-U-M-M-Y, dummy. And I hope that's clear why we need a dummy. Just to make sure that activities are joined when sometimes it may not be possible to join activities. Better to draw the network and see when you need to put in a dummy. All right, I hope that's clear, and that's the finish. Just to make sure you label the finish. All right, so the next recording, I'm going to look at task allocation and bipartite and flow. All right.